Hi, so could you actually let my laptop in? I was using my phone all the time, and it was like, yeah. So could you just, I will just leave here, and then could you just let the other? Okay, thank you.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Um, Mr. Forbes, I don't know if you're saying something, I cannot hear what you're saying right now. So
With are you with the Taekwondo club?
yes, that's correct. We
Okay.
are with Carolina Taekwondo.
In that case, before you begin, I do want to say that we're dealing with a budget of $931,000, which means we have to be funding at a rate of about 50%. Uh, so keep that in mind going forward. But with that being said, you have 3 to 5 minutes to present what your organization is about.
I'm so sorry, but I think your audio is cutting out. I don't know if it's just me, but I didn't really catch that last bit.
This,
Oh,
okay.
that's a lot better. It's a lot better.
Yeah, we are funding at a rate of about 50%. So with that, just keep that in mind going forward.
Gotcha.
But with that being said, you have the next.
All right, thank you. Hi everyone. My name is Bharat. I am one of the presidents of Carolina Taekwondo. Joining me in this call is Jahan Malouk. She is our treasurer for this year. Basically, Carolina Taekwondo Club, we teach Olympic style, World Taekwondo style Taekwondo at the university. Not only are we a club that practices and competes in Taekwondo, but we actually teach Taekwondo from the ground up. We've actually had people in past years come to us as white belts and they get their black belts certified by the organization in Korea from our club. Our mission is kind of to stress the mental development and physical aspect of Taekwondo. It's a martial art that incorporates kind of discipline and focus, but also we try to create a nice social atmosphere for people to find friendship and have a good time in. We compete regionally and nationally. We often either have tournaments around the region, so within North Carolina and Virginia. We've also gone up to the Northeast at a lot of Ivy League schools, as I'll talk about in a second, um, to um, to compete. So, with that being said, the the reason we're requesting money from student government this year primarily is to compete in these tournaments that are held in the Northeast. So we're planning to go to two competitions held by the Eastern Collegiate Taekwondo Conference. Um, and one of these is in MIT, one of these is at Brown University. So the big thing for us is travel and lodging. These are almost always overnight trips, obviously judging by the distance and the fact that these tournaments are held usually on a weekend. We leave, say, if the tournament's on a Sunday, we'll leave on Saturday, come back on Monday. Now, with that said, we're requesting $2,240. I know you said that you guys were funding around 50%, but I'm just going to go ahead and say the numbers we came up with, if that's all right. We're requesting $2,240 to accommodate 16 athletes for 4 nights. So that would be 2 nights per tournament. So 2 nights for MIT, two for Brown. That's the maximum student government offers according to the guidelines, $35 per athlete per night. And that's how we arrived at that number of 2,240. Again, as our request actually states, our actual lodging costs are going to be way more, but one of the things we really pride ourselves on is being one of the most affordable clubs on campus. And part of that extends to competitions. We try to, I believe last year we kept our competition costs per athlete to $15. This is like to go to these competitions. Now, given that sport clubs and campus recreation has given us less money this year, the onus is back on us to raise a lot more of that money. So moving on to travel, we're requesting $3,696. The reason we're requesting this is because we usually take our own cars and drive, but obviously we need that reimbursement for gas for the drivers and for potentially, the wear and tear on the vehicle as stated by the guidelines of the Student Government Funding Committee. So at 33 cents a mile for 4 cars and for 2 tournaments that are approximately 1,400 miles each, that's how we arrived at that number of 3,696. And lastly, for the ECTC tournaments, we're requesting $1,120 so that we can register our athletes to go and compete. Again, all in the interest of keeping costs as low as possible for every single competitor. And I know I'm probably running out of time, but just the last thing we wanted to request, we bring schools here to Carolina to compete. We take a lot of pride in doing that. It's a yearly tradition that we do with one of the conferences we compete with. And because of that, we'd like to request $300 to rent a U-Haul so that we can get mats that we actually get from a local Taekwondo master who owns a school in the area. We drive over to that master's Taekwondo school, pick up the mats, rent them, set them up here. And thankfully, they offer those mats for free. So the only expense we're really looking at, like, for that one is the U-Haul. So, yeah, with that said, if you guys have any questions for me, please do ask. That's pretty much all I've got to say for that.
Right. An important part of my topic. So, what did you do to prioritize your funding efforts?
I am so sorry again. It's like I can barely hear you, as if that is
in terms of vitality, which areas of funding do you want your money to go towards?
Okay, so in terms of vitality, I would say the biggest thing is travel. Like, it is our biggest category. Honestly, with how things pan out, I think we will be putting a lot of money towards that travel. I understand that line change is a possibility. I was the treasurer last year and I dealt with that a lot. But with that said, as a category, I'd say travel is definitely our biggest. And after that, I would say lodging. Honestly, between those two, other than that, the costs we try and keep pretty low. But those are like the big picture ones.
Then in that case, I move to fund dues and fees at a rate of $400. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Right, in the field rental, I move to fund at a rate of $0. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Then in lodging, I move to fund a rate of $896. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And I move to fund $2,417.50. Do I hear a second?
Second.
$3,513.60. May be subject to change later in budget reconciliation. If it is changed by more than 50%, reserve is not appeal. Going forward, the next steps will be finalized at hearing of the budget bill in September, at the end of September. That's all we have.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. And would you mind if we could just get like a breakdown of that in the chat, just so I can like copy paste it somewhere? Would that be possible?
All
right.
This
Okay.
number.
Yeah, I got you. So I see it here. Okay. Sweet. All right. Thank you very much for your time, everyone. And yeah, look forward to working with you all throughout the rest of the year.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
UNC.
Yes. Sorry, you're cutting out. I can't hear you.
Is this organization certified with the New York State University Equal and City organizations?
I think I heard you ask if we're affiliated with the university or if we're a registered organization. I believe we're in the final stages of, or actually, no, I believe our application was approved yesterday. Yeah. So it's really recent, but we got that done. Yeah.
Again, I do want to preface by saying we're dealing with a budget of $931,000, which means we're going to be 50%. So keep that in mind as we go forward. That being said, for the next 3 to 5 minutes to present our organization's funding request that we made for.
Okay, cool. So, good evening. Hope you all having a good night. My name is Fisher, and I'm the treasurer of AI at UNC. And we're a club that's all about bringing artificial intelligence closer to every student at UNC, regardless of their year, their experience, or their major. We believe that the magic of AI isn't just for graduate students or experts, but that it's something that everyone can grasp and explore. We hope you keep in mind that we are currently the only club at UNC involved with AI, and we do believe that it is extremely important for UNC to create more opportunities for people to get involved in this quickly evolving field. So some of the things that we're requesting funding for, we have our interest meeting, which we're holding next week. We're just hoping for $50 under printing and publicity for that to get the word out to different students of different backgrounds and interests. One of our main projects we're working on throughout the semester is our literature search project, which is a project in collaboration with Professor Kristen Hasmiller from the Gilling School of Public Health. This project's essentially using machine learning to streamline the process of taking qualitative research data in papers and kind of turning them into a more digestible form of data. And we're hoping to do this project with club members as well as obviously our professor that we're working with. For this project, we need $100 to create and host a website for the project and $100 for API credits used to test the project. And kind of a sub-project of that is the Literature Search Hackathon that we're planning to hold, which will be a 5-hour-long hackathon event, which is basically, we'll have around 100 students together in a room, collaborating either individually or in teams to develop AI prompts that are able to search through research papers, like I said. So we're kind of trying to make this appeal to students in all majors, not just computer science majors. For this event, we need funding for food since it's 5 hours long. It's going to be right in the middle of dinner time, so we need people to be able to sustain through that. We're asking for $750 under supplies for that. We're also hoping for $300 for API credits to be able to test the things that students submit during the hackathon.
That will be $300 under supplies. We're requesting $800 for printing t-shirts under the clothings category. That would be 100 t-shirts at around $8 a t-shirt. And we're hoping for $25 for printing and publicity to get the word out about that. Another project we're planning to run is a 10-week long boot camp, basically to introduce around 50 members of the club to machine learning and kind of, get them involved even if they don't have much experience. Students walk away from this project with a actual project they can put on their resume, which is actually pretty important, especially for computer science students to have projects on their resume. Sorry. For this project, we're hoping for $150 to fund Minecraft accounts for students who don't already have a Minecraft account. Students are going to use the AI project that they create, which will be basically like it'll track your hand movements and translate that to movement in the game. So we need some money for accounts. We need $400 for clothing. That's 50 t-shirts for each member of the boot camp at about $8 a t-shirt, and $25 for printing and publicity, getting the word out. Our final big project is the Jetson drone project, which is essentially we will build a drone with a camera on it that can run different AI algorithms and projects that club members work and collaborate on, and essentially use that drone to use the group members' projects in a real life environment. One example, the first project we plan to do on the drone is one where the drone will fly around and be able to detect smoke from wildfires and, just doing projects like that with the drone. For this project, we're requesting $899.04 under the capital category, and a full detailed breakdown of that is available in the funding request form that I submitted. Last but not least, the end of semester showcase, which is just a showcase to let members, show what they worked on throughout the semester. And for that, we're just asking for $25 printing and publicity to get the word out. So in conclusion, we're the only AI club at UNC. We're hoping that UNC would like to fund something like this in an emerging field so that we can help connect students to artificial intelligence. Thank you.
Which categories do you want to prioritize your funding towards, since you chose 50%?
Sorry, you're cutting out a lot. I'm not sure if anyone else can chime in if.
With the 50% budget, which categories do you want to prioritize funding towards?
Prioritize funding for which categories? So the priority would definitely be under the capital, getting that drone built and the parts for that, and under the supplies category for the API credits. So capital and supplies were the main ones for us.
I move that we fund capital expenditures of $700 with their second.
Second.
I move that we fund clothing at $300 with their second.
Second.
I move to fund publicity at $60 with their second.
Second.
And then finally, supplies, I move that we fund at $700 with their second.
Second.
All right. Has been appropriated $1,760. That number may be subject to more than 50% to a appeal, but looking forward, budget as a whole will be presented at the end of September, which would your budget.
Thank you. And will itemized list of the funding be sent to my email?
It should be found on the main funding site that you apply for.
Okay, thank you.
Are you here with the Carolina Holston American Society?
Yeah.
Okay. One second. Okay. So before we get started, I do want to preface this by saying we are dealing with a budget of $931,000, which means we will have to fund at a rate of about 50%. So keep that in mind as we go forward tonight. But with that, you have the next 3 to 5 minutes to present why your organization needs funding and what it needs funding.
Okay, great. Kagan, do you mind sharing your screen with the slide, please?
Out of fairness to all organizations and due to the purpose of saving time, we like to go off of what's directly on the website. We do not
Okay, sorry. I didn't fully make out what you're saying. I think you meant no slide. I'm just used to doing that for all of our other semesters. But no worries, I can go right into it. So, hi, my name is Santhoshini, and I'm the treasurer for CHSS, Carolina Health Samaritan Society. With approximately 751 members, we are one of the largest health organizations on campus. And our goal for this semester is to continue to build our diverse student body so that we can grow our impact on the Chapel Hill Carborough community and help more students gain exposure to health-related fields. To provide them with many opportunities, CHSS is hoping to hold a variety of events, from shadowing and informational panels to team building events. We have grown student camaraderie while having a positive impact on our community through volunteering at organizations like the SECU Family Home, crafting craft kits for UNC hospital pediatric patients, and writing cards to caregivers at UNC hospitals. Furthermore, we're lucky enough to be working with 6 other health-related guest speakers who will be presenting at our general body meetings, as well as volunteers to aid in our skill training workshops. These events are aimed to help students get their questions answered about their pre-professional journey and gain exposure to healthcare fields. We couple these events with CPR certification classes, Stop the Bleed classes, and kits for medical protocol practice. To show our appreciation for these amazing healthcare professionals that aid in these events, we are requesting funding in the form of honoraria. In addition, we are also requesting funding to help fund club events such as bake sales and a basketball tournament to continue to grow the sense of community within our club. Finally, to facilitate communication with our student body of nearly 730 members, we are requesting funding for MailChimp, Canva Pro, and Grammarly subscriptions to make weekly emails and graphic design easier for our communications and publicity teams. We greatly appreciate the funding that we received last year, and with this money, we were able to carry out all of the events that we had hoped to while growing our student membership by nearly 300 people. We believe that the funding we have requested for this semester will allow us to achieve our goals of benefiting the Chapel Hill Carborough community and benefiting our own Carolina community by giving students exposure to health fields. Thank you.
Well, with that, I'll go into my questions. It is very clear that your organization has a large reach. So, since we are limited by a budget, which categories do you want to prioritize funding towards?
Programming and speaker fees, please.
Uh, okay. Yeah, all right. Then in that case, I will move to fund printing and publicity at a rate of $0. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I move to fund the category of programming at $3,289.30. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And then I move to fund speaker fees in honoraria at $600 $23. Do I hear a second?
Second.
With that, the Carolina Health Samaritan Society has been funded $3,912.30. That number might be subject to change later in the night during budget reconciliation, and if that number changes by more than 50%, you are entitled to an appeal. Looking forward, your organization's budget will be truly finalized at the passage of the budget bill, which will happen at the end of this month. But that's all we have for you tonight. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Hello.
Hello, are you with App Team Carolina?
Yes, sir.
All right. Before we get started, I do want to preface this by saying we are working with a budget of $31,000.
Could you repeat that? Because I can't really hear you. I'm sorry, the connection is really bad.
$931,000, which was of 50%.
I still can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Chair Forbes, if I think if you would rather me give the thing, or what did you say? Okay. Oh, sorry. Hi. Sorry. So before we begin, I think Chair Forbes wanted to say that we're dealing with a budget of $931,000, and therefore we'll be funding at a rate of about 50%. You have 3 to 5 minutes to explain why your organization needs funding.
Okay. Do I start now? Yeah, okay. So my organization, App Team Carolina, is a primarily software development organization on UNC campus that's really multifaceted and has more than what's usually seen to the eye. We have 2 teams within our organization, learning team and production team. And through those teams, we aim to primarily empower our students, not only within our organization, but through all diverse, ways of majors, backgrounds, everyone at UNC. And to do this, I basically, again, we have our learning teams and production teams. Our learning teams are meant to empower our students through learning. We primarily create mobile apps, like you have a lot of mobile apps on your phone, like App Store, Notes, even like Carolina One. You have a lot of apps on your phone, and we basically teach students, how do you create those apps? Because there's a lot of issues on campus that, could be easily solved through an app. One of them could be navigation. Another one is dining hall, seeing if, some food has allergens and it's not mentioned there. There's a lot of things that can be created through apps, and we primarily teach those students how to create those apps in our learning teams. And with our production teams, we actually, use the skills in the students from those learning teams to create real apps. Our most recent one is currently Bubbly, which is used for any student who has CVI, cortical visual impairment, and it helps them kind of train their eyes and brain so that they can see correctly.
We also have 2 other apps currently in production, Sendable, which is used to help students manage their finances and make sure that they can track their money through various accounts, whether it be debit card, credit card, Venmo. And we have another one called Luminary, which is primarily dedicated for accessibility. Students on campus who can't take traditional routes, who need accommodations. It's meant to be able so that students can navigate the campus and find ways that have ramps, have functioning elevators, and ensure that they can get to a place without encountering any obscurity or hindrance to where they need to be. And to do that, it's not free, which is the reason why we're asking for this much budget for this undergraduate finance, I guess, semester. And through that, again, we need those developers to make sure that we can create those apps, and B, the technology to do so. So our budget is currently at $14,997.42. The first one, building rental. A lot of the apps that we create need to come with publicity, because if an organization has an app but no one sees it, it kind of makes it really difficult for us to show how a lot of people could benefit from it. So which is why we have the gala. It's a chance for us students to showcase, hey, here's all the progress we're making, and also show the updates on our production teams for not only students within our organization, but professors, industry professionals, and other students. And over the past few, I guess, semesters, we've had to really limit the exposure to other students because of capacity limits, because of how much it costs to host a venue, which is why we're asking for $1,000 in that section. Because, well, currently we inquired with the pitch on Franklin Street. It costs $250 an hour, 4 hours, and with that money, we could substantially increase our impact on campus, not having to say, oh, you can't come because there's a capacity limit. For capital expenditures, that really relates to our production teams, so that we have the technology to create apps. A lot of it is, we can create it on the computer, but because we don't have the devices to actually test it on, we're not sure if those apps really work properly, which is why we need that much funds, so that we can continue to develop the software so that it's free for all students and it's not hindered by any financial burdens. And also ensure that, if I have a certain iPhone and if someone else has a certain iPhone, that it works across all devices and not just my platform, to ensure that, again, people of all backgrounds and with all devices can continue to use those, applications and devices. And Kush is another production member, another C-suite member within our organization. Would you like to talk about, I guess, the clothing and travel and lodging parts of our request, Kush?
Yes, I can. Have you already touched on it?
I touched on the gala and the capital expenditures.
Okay, so t-shirts, that's kind of something that we have been trying to do in-house for a while. We have been using the makerspace every semester, but we have an issue where it just has a huge commitment in time from our organization. It takes us months and months to where we're not able to get them prepared until pretty much the end of the semester, when a lot of people will graduate. So we've had to resort to buying t-shirts in other semesters from places like Custom Ink or something, but it kind of racks up, especially with growing numbers and trying to make sure that every member gets a t-shirt for the semester. So that's kind of where the clothing budget comes in from. Most of the other stuff is out of our members' pockets. We do hoodies and sweatshirts as well, but our members will pay for those out of pocket, and we'll do the embroidering and all of the customization ourselves in the makerspace. And then for lodging, we have a professional development event. It kind of gives our members an opportunity to get some heads down, uninterrupted time to just work on their projects with their teams. And so we have kind of a getaway where people will work together to work on whatever their team is working on, whether it be for a learning team, their curriculum, working with the actual LA or TA for their team, and getting that live feedback as they're working, or for a production team, actually getting to work on the project. Because for us, we only really meet once a week for an hour, whereas in the industry, most people will meet regularly an hour a day, which is a lot more time than we really ever have in the semester, especially with the busy schedules of our members. So having this opportunity for everybody to kind of get away and get the heads down, time to work on their team's projects, is very useful for us. I don't know if I'm missing anything, William.
No, yeah, that's basically it. And again, to ensure that we have the accommodations for members to travel to this event where we actually get to have most of our progress made for those apps I mentioned earlier, we also require, travel accommodations because, we have to drive for those to achieve. And lastly, our labor fees. Again, we are a team of students, which means that we also require industry experience, which is where those labor fees come in place. We need to have, privacy things written as in addition to like copyright trademarks, and also professionals come in to ensure that, hey, every student that downloads our app, doesn't have the data stolen, has all their rights clearly stated, and that they're not being taken advantage of, to have everyone a fair ground who downloads our apps. And that is our budget proposal.
Being clearly the organization has a large reach. We are though still but limited by the budget. So which of these 6 categories that you applied funding to would you like to have funds prioritized towards? Oh, you're muted.
I couldn't hear the first part of what you said. If you don't mind repeating it.
Where would you like to have funding prioritized?
I think the biggest thing would probably be lodging and clothing and building rental, just because those are usually the most pivotal parts, and those are also the parts where members have to pay additional out-of-pocket fees. And having the budget to make it so that members don't feel hindered by financial burden would make it a great deal of importance to us.
And I don't know if you touched on this, William, but we have a policy in App Team where if a member communicates even an inkling of financial need to us, we cover pretty much all their expenses, but all they have to do is ask. But it gets to be expensive, especially when some of these things take pretty large chunks out of our budgets as well. If we could cover it with dues, we would, but
Now, just looking at how you calculated the budget, you have approximately $49 per night. We fund at a rate of $35 per student per night. So if you want funding for lodging, we'll have to.
sorry, your mic is like very choppy. I can make out maybe every other word you're saying. There we go.
We fund lodging at a rate of $35 per student per night. So this rate of $49 per night would not.
That's for 2 students in a room, though.
We over the summer changed the rate, and it is $35 per student per night. So
that should still be under 35 students. That
Okay.
should still work.
All right, then in that case, I'm going to move that we fund, where was it? Travel at $1,089. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. I'm going to move that we fund lodging at, where was it? $2,750. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. Going to move that we fund labor fees at $700. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. I'm going to move that we fund clothing at $500. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Going to move that we fund capital expenditures at $2,300. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. And then for building and venue rental, I am going to move that we fund building and venue rental at $1,000.
Second.
All right. Then with that being said, App Team Carolina has been appropriated $8,339. That number is subject to change during the night during budget reconciliation. If it changes by more than 50%, you are entitled to an appeal. As for next steps, your budget will be finalized at the end of September when the full Senate passes a large budget bill with all other organizations. But that is all we have for you tonight. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for your time, Finance Chair.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello, 1 second, please.
All right, no problem.
All right. Hello there. Are you with UNC Popper Players?
Yes.
All right. Before we begin, I do want to preface the amount of budget we are working with. We have a budget of $931,000 for this cycle, which means we will have to fund organizations at a rate of about 50%. So keep that in mind as we go forward tonight.
Okay.
But with that being said, you have the next 3 to 5 minutes to explain what your organization needs funding for.
All right. So our main costs come with producing shows. We produce a fall main stage musical and a spring main stage musical, as well as Rocky Horror for Halloween. A big part of the cost comes with renting the venue and also ordering licensing materials from the companies. So specifically for show rights, tracks, material rentals, and the security fee, which is something we've already paid, that's $26.95. And then our production budget for the show is going to be $350. And then the rental was how much was the, I'm not sure if we have an exact number for the rental, but I think it's going to be around 3,000. Yeah. And then for Rocky, which is also going to be this semester, that is $27.50 to the Varsity Theater, and our budget for production for that show is $100.
In that case, of course, working with the budget, which categories do you want to prioritize your funding for?
I think we will prioritize programming and building venue rental.
In that case, I am then going to move that we fund production at a rate of $0. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, and now I'm going to move that we fund building venue rental at a rate of $3,844.50. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, and then for programming, I'm going to move that we fund programming at a rate of $1,564.75. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. Then with that being done, UNC Popper Players has been appropriated $5,409.25. That number might be subject to change later in the night during budget reconciliation. If it is changed by more than 50%, your organization reserves the right to an appeal. Looking forward, your organization's budget will be finalized concretely at the end of this month when the budget bill as a whole is passed by the full Senate. But with that being said, that's all we have for you tonight. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Are you here with ice hockey?
Yeah, I'm Michael. I'm the president, and that's Jack Leeson, our treasurer.
Before we get started, I do want to preface this by saying that we're working with a budget of $931,000, which means that we will have to fund organizations at a rate of about 50%. But with that, we can get you, you'll have the next 3 to 5 minutes if you need it to explain your budget request.
So basically, as UNC Hockey, we have to go to Orange County Sportsplex and pay for practice ice time as well as game ice time. And that's only it's a pretty big portion of our expenses, but we have to raise a lot of money on our own. But for ice time, it ends up being $15,750 just for practice ice and game ice, which we have how many home games?
About 9 home games.
9 home games at $1,250, but $1,250 per game. And those are just our ice time expenses. That doesn't include bus travel, lodging,
Equipment.
anything else, team meals. So this $15,000 would go a long way in helping with that. And while it would only be a small portion of our costs, it would make a big difference to get the full request.
We do have to work within the constraints of the budget. And seeing as you only requested one line item, I am going to move that we fund the category of building and venue rental at $7,500. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, well, with that, ice hockey has been appropriated $7,500. That number may be subject to change later in the night during budget reconciliation. If it changes by more than 50%, you reserve the right to an appeal. But as for next steps, your organization's budget will be finalized at the end of the month when the budget bill is heard by the full Senate. As for tonight, though, that is all. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too.
Hi, everyone.
Good evening. Are you with UNC Flourish?
Yep, that's me. I'm Julia.
1 second, please. Before we begin, I do want to preface this by saying we are working with a budget of $931,000. which means we will have to fund at a rate of about 50%. But with that being said, you'll have the next 3 to 5 minutes to present your organization's budget request.
Awesome, sounds great. So looking at my notes, I have requested $1,244.08 for UNC Flourish. A lot of this money is, well, UNC Flourish, just to preface, is an organization dedicated to addressing nutrition and food insecurity, both on and off campus. So we do a lot of educational events. That's a lot of times where we get a lot of publicity and people hearing about our club and the ideals that we represent. I would also say that we do more programming wise is going to Secchi Family House and Ronald McDonald House to prepare meal events for to prepare meals for patients. And this is a huge part of our club community. And so for that, we need money to transport people there or reimburse people for bringing members there. And we also tend to, something that I put as supplies was $1,000. And I had seen that you had a, in the budget, you have funding to appropriate to food insecurity organizations. And so this is essentially where this would come in, because a lot of times the meals that we prepare is like for 30, it could range from 30 to 50 people. And so for these, we need food supplies in order to prepare these meals for the patients. This is a huge part of our club. So I wasn't sure how exactly your funding worked in that sense. That's why I put it under supplies. And yeah, and then just quickly, just in general, we don't require dues for our club. All we have is like $10 donations. So even though you are going at a rate of 50%, a lot of the stuff that we have is very specific to our club needs. Yeah, really important.
Okay, so on the topic of food and food insecurity, that 100-person limit on receiving funds is specifically for the food insecurity allocation, which is another cycle that is going to open up at the end of the month. I'm drafting the email to be sent out now. So during the normal semi-annual and subsequent cycles, we cannot fund food in specifically, but during that food insecurity cycle, you will be able to apply for money to pay for food. So you can apply for money again there, and that can be used for food.
Okay, awesome. And then are there any, like for that process, are there any specifications to what the what the meal events have to be? I mean, ours are obviously committed to food insecurity. I just want to make sure that like for that process we would get money.
The biggest requirement that we have in terms of food insecurity is that any event that the Senate will be funding food for must be attended by 100 or more individuals.
Right. Which are event. Yeah.
So if that condition is satisfied, you will be able to apply for food. That's the only requirement we have. But then looking at your request, I understand that supplies, the entirety of supplies is supposedly going towards funding food.
For the most part, supplies may also go to creating publicity materials. So that's also something that might be part of that. Yeah.
Okay. In that case, I'm going to move that we fund travel at $244.08. Is there a second?
Second.
And then for supplies, I'm going to move that we fund supplies at $200. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. The UNC Flourish has been appropriated $444.08 by the Senate. That number might be subject to change later in the night during budget reconciliation. If it changes by more than 50%, you are entitled to an appeal. As for next steps, this budget will be solidified or finalized at the end of the month when the full Senate hears the budget bill. Also at the end of the month, currently planned for the weekend of September 29th, 30th, and October 1st, the food insecurity cycle will open up, so you will be able to apply for funding for food then. But yeah, that's all that we have for you tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hi, Andrew. So subcommittee 2 is backed up because one of the clubs ran like 2 minutes late, which is now like pushing the past two clubs a little bit late. Therefore, Lucas, who's in the waiting room with us right now from Kappa Kappa Psi, is just currently waiting.
All right, that's
Yeah.
Okay, I'll let Joshua know to speed up the process.
Okay, yeah, sorry. It was like two clubs ago. They ran like 2 minutes late and then just trickled over. Hi, Julia. Which club are you representing?
Hi, I'm here for Tar Heel Voices.
Tar Heel Voices? Okay,
Yes,
awesome.
at 8:30.
Yes. I could put you in like a minute early. Would you prefer that, or would you prefer 8:30?
That's fine. I can get a minute early.
Okay. Lucas, I'm gonna put you in the breakout room now, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Shoot, our finance chair just had to run to the bathroom, so I can't let you in until he's back. I just wanted to let you know that.
That's okay. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. Hi, you guys. Which clubs are you representing?
Hi, I'm with Advocacy for Universal Refugee Aid at 8:50, just here early.
Oh, okay. There are two clubs before you. Would you like to stay in the waiting room until then, or do you want to come back in like 15, 20 minutes?
Yeah, I'll just come back in. Thanks.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Abigail, which club are you representing?
I'm here for Puppies at Carolina.
Okay, perfect. Only issue is we've had some like backup because one club ran super late. Therefore, the subcommittee 2 is currently like behind. So you might not be able to get in right at 8:30, but I promise that won't like affect anything.
Yeah, no problem. I'll just
Okay.
wait here. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Ashley, which club are you representing?
Ashley is the president of Puppies at Carolina, and I'm the treasurer.
Okay, perfect.
Yes.
All right. Galia, once the finance chair has moved back to the subcommittee, I can move you with him.
Okay,
Perfect, thank
perfect.
you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Leela, you're with Tar Heel Voices.
Yes, hi.
All right. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Good. Before we get started, I do want to preface this by saying we're working with a budget of $931,000, which means that we're going to have to be funding organizations at a rate of about 50%. But with that being said, you have the next 3 to 5 minutes to explain why your organization needs funding and what it needs funding for.
All right, thank you. So I'm sure you have the funding requests up so you can see the price breakdowns that I've included, but our 4 main events for this semester are our fall concert, our album release and distribution, our new retreat, and our ICCA submission. So our fall concert is our biggest expense. It's a little over $4,000 to put it on. We're also including new expenses, such as maybe holding it off campus, which will cost a reservation fee, and including a photographer and a videographer, so we have official photos and videos. And then the costs that I've included are estimations for the union expenses, like the equipment rental and the labor fees, but we'll have specifics later on. Our album release and distribution, we have a company that we're already doing it with, but we have recorded our spring concert from last semester, and we're hoping to release it now because we are mixing and mastering it with the company that we've chosen. We have an initial bill from them, which is about $2,000, and then distribution costs on top of that. But that's the price that we have so far, and we're hoping to release it on our platforms, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music. Our new retreat, which is, I've estimated about $2,000, which just includes lodging and the travel costs that I've accounted for with the percentages that the Senate is willing to fund. This is a trip that we usually take mid to early October, which is where we introduce our new members to the way that we learn music and about 2 to 3 songs that we have prepared during the summer, and is a very important way for us to introduce the music that we are going to sing at fall concert and get a head start on our schedule. We usually travel in state, sometimes to the mountains, sometimes to the countryside, but we don't travel more than 250 miles from Chapel Hill. And then lastly, our ICCA submission. So this is a $300 submission fee to participate in the International Championship of Collegiate Acapella. We usually travel, last year we traveled to Knoxville in Tennessee, but sometimes we stay in Durham. So I haven't accounted for any travel fees or lodging fees for that because we don't know for sure yet. And we have to pay in the fall in order to participate in the spring. But that's pretty much it.
Okay. It says you have 13 dues paying members and your impact is 10 individuals. Is this accurate?
Oh, I had put around 2,000 because we usually perform for a majority of the freshman class at the beginning of the year and then our concerts. But I don't know why it says 10.
The submission also states that your group is unwilling to identify student government as its sponsor. Is this true?
The student congress. I don't think so. Sorry, I think I may have mistakenly put that on because I'm pretty sure we have to say that for our events. So yes. Sorry.
But yeah, getting confirmation here, that's fine. Then in that case, we are of course restrained by the limits of the budget. So which of these 10 categories do you want to prioritize funds for?
I'd like to prioritize our capital expenditure, programming, and equipment rental.
Okay. Let's see. Then, okay. How do you view the other categories and their importance?
They are important mainly for like the support of our concert and our album release, but we would be okay if just the big expenses are covered.
More so, which other categories would you want to prioritize funding for in this application?
Okay. I would say labor fees and supplies and travel would be the other 3 that I would want to prioritize as well.
In that case, I will move that in the category of capital expenditures, we fund at $4,000. Do I hear a second?
Second.
In the category of equipment rental, I move to fund at $600. Do I hear a second?
Second.
In the category of labor fees, I move to fund at $300. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And then travel, I move to fund at $500. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And then supplies, I move to fund at $150. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And then in the categories of programming, printing and publicity, lodging, dues and fees, and building and venue rental, I move to fund at rates of $0 for all of them. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. And with that, Tar Heel Voices has been appropriated $5,550. That number may be subject to change later in the night during budget reconciliation. If it changes by more than 50%, you reserve the right to an appeal. Looking forward, your organization's budget will be finalized at the end of this month when the full budget bill is heard by the Senate. But as for tonight, that is all. Thank you for coming.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you need from me?
No, that's all.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
All right, bye.
Good evening. Are you here with UNC All-Girl Club Cheerleading?
Yes, I am.
All right, awesome. Before we get started, I do want to preface this by saying we're working with a budget of $931,000, which means we will have to fund organizations at a rate of about 50%. But with that being said, you'll have the next 3 to 5 minutes to present your organization's budget request and why you need money.
Thank you so much. So the UNC All-Girl Club Cheer Team is the only competitive cheerleading team on our campus, with our group of 28 athletes competing at the state and national level. We create a unique environment for athletes by allowing our members to try out without any prior experience. And many of our girls have tried out without experience and have come to train with us and become amazing athletes while falling in love with the sport and the team. With that, cheer, like any sport, has costs ranging from travel fees to competition costs to camp fees. And while we try to be as accessible as possible for all to join our team through things like fundraising and waiving fees in the past for those of lower socioeconomic status, Some of our costs last year were just too great for us to solely afford through fundraising. So today the cheer team is asking for a total of $9,800, which is going towards the two most important events of our team, which is the NCAA Collegiate National Championship competition in Daytona Beach, Florida, which is the highest competitive level collegiate cheer competition in the US, and our pre-NCAA showcase that our team personally hosts in Chapel Hill, which last year hosted over 600 event goers, and we're planning to increase that amount this year. So the NCAA competition in Florida is our most costly event, with things like travel, lodging, and registration fees alone adding up to over $1,000 per athlete. So because of this, our team is asking for $4,200 in registration fees and $3,920 for lodging, which would amount to $290 per athlete that wouldn't have to come out of each girl's pocket. Our hometown showcase, in which we host teams from multiple states across the East Coast, South Carolina, Pennsylvania, Virginia. That's our greatest event for personal and social growth. It helps both our athletes, other teams, club teams at our school, and club teams across the country create bonds and show off our skills before we travel to the national stage. For this event, our team is asking for $1,400 for uniforms that would first be worn at the showcase and then again at later state competitions and Daytona practice days, and then $280 for supplies, which would go towards purchasing reusable printed signs and decorations that can be used for not only our showcase, but other fundraising events during the year and then in the future. With that, on behalf of UNC All Girl, we thank you for hearing our proposal, and I'm here to welcome any questions that y'all have towards our team or the budget.
Formula we have to that there, but of course we are constrained by the budget. So which of these four categories do you want to prioritize funding for?
I would say anything within the national competition. I feel like our registration fee is probably the most important part, because without our registration, we're not allowed to compete. And so that is also probably the most costly thing for our girls, because the registration for NCAA is, in my opinion, not it's very high compared to other competitions, probably because it's on the national level. But it is the most costly thing for our members.
Clothing, lodging, and supplies is important to the organization.
How important are the other aspects, you'd say? I mean, the travel fee or the lodging fee is also definitely a big part for us, because we have to stay somewhere during the national competition. It's a 4-day event in total, and so we need 4 nights to stay in a hotel, and that's also probably the next most costly thing for our athletes. I'd say then probably the uniforms. We have typically a practice wear uniform and then a performance uniform, which that's typical for most cheer teams. When, especially in Daytona, they strongly advise that people don't wear their uniforms on the practice days, that they instead wear something that is team affiliated but not our official uniform. And then I would say supplies is probably our last part.
In that case, I'm going to move that we fund the category of supplies at $0 with our second.
Second.
I'm going to move that we fund lodging at a rate of $1,940 with our second.
Second.
All right, dues and fees. I'm going to move that we fund dues and fees at $3,000 with our second.
Second.
And then I'm going to move that we fund clothing of $400.
Second.
All right, then with that, UNC Chapel Hill All-Girl Club Cheerleading has been appropriated $5,340 from the Undergraduate Senate. That number might be subject to change throughout the night during budget reconciliation. If it changes by more than 50%, you reserve the right to an appeal. But looking forward at next steps, your organization's budget will be finalized at the end of this month when the budget bill is heard by the full Senate. But as for tonight, that is all for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good evening. Are you here with Advocacy for Universal Refugee Aid?
Yes, I am.
Is your organization registered with the Office of Student Organizations?
I'm so sorry, you're cutting out.
Is your organization registered with the Office of Student Organizations?
Yes.
It is? Okay. Are you currently in the process of finalizing that, or have you been an organization for years
I'm so sorry,
past?
you're cutting out.
Are you currently in the process of finalizing that, or has your organization been an RSO with the university for years past?
The organization was registered last semester, I believe, but we are updating the registration.
Okay, then in that case, I will preface this by saying we're working with a budget of $931,000, which means that we have to fund organizations at a rate of about 50%. But with that being said, you'll have the next 3 to 5 minutes to present your organization's budget and what you need money for.
All right, thank you so much. But ultimately, Advocacy for Universal Refugee Aid is asking for a total of $2,058 to hold a soccer tournament as part of our fall fundraising week. We anticipate having roughly 100 participants and will be charging an admission fee of $50 per team. We are primarily asking for funding to recover the cost of the venue, which is roughly $300, the cost of equipment, which includes soccer balls at a total of $150, goalposts at $312, pennies at $180, a trophy at $100, foldable tables at $120, a speaker system at $260, and a tent for the foldable tables at $140. In total, we are asking for $1,608 to cover the cost of equipment. We are also requesting funding to cover the cost of hiring 6 referees at $15 an hour for 5 hours for a total of $450.
Well, in terms of saving things down to fit the budget, which categories do you want to prioritize funding towards?
I'm so sorry, you keep cutting out.
Which categories do you want to prioritize funding to?
We would like to prioritize funding for equipment.
Okay, so supplies.
I'm sorry, you're gonna have to repeat yourself.
So under the supplies category.
Could you say that again?
Under the supplies category.
Maybe it'll be easier if you type it in the chat.
Is
I'm
that in the
so
supplies
sorry.
category?
Yes.
In that case, I'm going to move that we fund building and venue rental at $150. So here a second.
Second.
Labor fees, I'm going to move that we fund at $225. So here a second.
Second.
All right, and then okay. And then supplies, I'm going to move to fund $750. So here a second.
Second.
All right, then with that, advocacy for universal refugee aid has been appropriated $1,125. That number may be subject to change throughout the night during budget reconciliation. If that number changes by more than 50%, we reserve the right to an appeal. Looking forward to next steps, your organization's budget will be approved by the full Senate when the budget bill is heard at the end of this month. But that is all we have for you tonight. Thank you for coming.
All right, thank you so much, guys.
Good evening. You with, let's see, Carolina Boxing?
Yes, sir.
Before we begin, I want to preface this by saying we're working with a budget of $931,000. So we will have to fund organizations at a rate of about 50%. So keep that in mind as we go forward tonight. But with that being said, you'll have the next 3 to 5 minutes to explain what your organization is about and what you need the effort and money for.
Okay, sounds great. Also, I'm not sure why. I apologize. I'm having a hard time hearing you. You're coming through a little staticky.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm Tyler Elliott. I am the organizational treasurer for Carolina Boxing, and we are a club founded to teach the fundamentals of boxing to anyone from the UNC community, whether you're an absolute beginner or whether you're fairly experienced. And for our budget request, we're looking for about $600 for capital expenditures, and this will go towards punching bag variations and the proper equipment to secure them, which is an integral part of learning the sport and will be available to all of our members. And the rest of our budget request includes $400 for travel, $400 for lodging, and $507 for programming. And whenever I submitted my original budget request, we were unsure of our exact plan, but now we know it. We are planning to go to Townsend on October 6th, Maryland on October 28th, and Georgia Tech on December 2nd to have our athletes from our competition team be able to compete and represent our club. And I believe all of this is very vital to our club in the sense that bags are integral to the learning process. And while it may seem that only a few of our members actually get to go and compete, it's been part of the foundation for our club as a whole to have our members go and compete and have those who don't compete rally around them and support our fellow athletes. And I think we also offer a very unique sort of environment where anyone's able to come. You don't need any prior experience. You don't need any sort of knowledge, and we're open, and it provides a space that's even hard to find off of campus, in my experience at least, to have somewhere welcoming to where you can either just enjoy hanging out and socializing and learn the basics, or be serious about it and really want to score and compete. So I think that we offer a unique environment, and we have a fairly large club of 200 members, 262 according to Heal Life. And I think this entire budget is integral to our club as a whole.
All right. Let's see. Looking at the request, we do have a strict formula that we need to follow in terms of funding travel. And it looks like in your request that was estimated. We will need a proper way to follow that formula, which is
I do have that. According to the Title VI, it says you can get 33 cents to the mile in gas. And Townsend is 336 miles away, and Maryland is 378, and Georgia Tech is 291. So considering travel there and back with carpooling and an estimated one car, Townsend would be $221.76. Maryland would be $249.48, and Georgia Tech would be $192.06.
Looking forward at like the vitality of these programs to your organization, which of the four categories do you want to prioritize funding towards?
I would prioritize funding primarily for capital expenditures because it directly benefits our entire club. However, I wouldn't overlook the rest of the categories because they're also integral to the club as a whole and have proved the foundation since the club began in 2006. We've had athletes go and compete, and it's a part of the club that even people who don't compete have come to really love and enjoy.
In that case, with all that in mind, I'm going to move that we fund capital expenditures at $500. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I'm going to move that we fund lodging at $200. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And programming, I'm going to move that we fund it $300. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And then finally, travel, I'm going to move that we fund it $0.
Second.
There a second. All right, with that being done, Carolina Boxing has been appropriated $1,000 by the Undergraduate Senate. That number may be subject to change later in the night during budget reconciliation. If it changes by more than 50%, your organization reserves the right to an appeal. But in terms of next steps, at the end of this month, the budget bill with all organizations funding will be heard and passed by the full Senate. But in terms of tonight, that is all. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for your time.
Sigma Gamma Rho sorority.
Yes, that's me. Hello.
Before we get started, I do want to preface this by saying we're working with a budget of $931,000, which means we're funding organizations at a rate of about 50%. But with that, we'll give you the next 3 to 5 minutes to present your organization funding request and what you'd be money for.
Okay, thank you. And do you mind if I ask the question, are you guys actively looking at the budget request as I go along with this, or? Okay, just wanted to make sure. Yes, so with that being said, as you can see on our budget request, we currently have requested a grand total of $2,215.94. We do currently have 5 members, but we predict with the events we hold this semester, we should be reaching out to about 100 individuals because our events are open to the wider UNC audience. So with that being said, I'll start out of order with our events and start with the most expensive thing on our list, which is the new member presentation. When our sorority does take in new members, we do a presentation for the wider UNC audience. It is an opportunity to learn more about our sorority, our history, which ties with Black history, learning more about Black history and Black culture on UNC campus, which we think is a very beautiful thing. But to do that, we do incur some cost. So we anticipate having 4 new individuals this semester, plus 2 members of our current sorority. 2 members from our sorority currently participate in the show, and they all need costumes for this, which with the $50 allotment, we were requesting $50 each per person, even though the total would be about 100. Which would be 300 each, excuse me. We need a DJ, which should be around $200, $100 an hour. We would be using a DJ that has previously been used by other organizations, such as NPHC on campus, a photographer, which is about $200 an hour, which once again is another UNC student who also has a photography business. We used them last year for our show. So this is based on a quote that we received last year for our show. They said the price should be around the same for this semester. We do cultural gifts at the show for new members as well. This will be things like sweatshirts, new member pins is about $300. Decorations for the show is about $150. And for advertising purposes for this event, we would also like to rent the paint cart and paint a cube in front of the union, and that cost is $12. Now, another event that we planned on having this semester, going down the list, would be a Halloween spooky night, just a time for UNC students to be able to relax, watch some Halloween movies, carve pumpkins, and if they want, dress up, a de-stress event, which during this time, it's very important to de-stress. Halloween, typically that's around a time of midterms, people start stressing out, etc. So for that event, we were thinking it would cost about $20 just to get some miniature pumpkins for people, and about $15 just for paper plates and cups. And to make sure we're remaining compliant, we did plan on buying paper plates and paper cups that would be made of 100% recycled material and would be plant-based and compostable. We have a fitness event plan just to encourage the health of our student body. Currently, we want to go and rent out a space from Campus Rec. The rate is currently about $8 an hour. We anticipate having 2 hours for this event, and that would cost $16 for us to do. So we're requesting $16 for that. Another de-stress and unwind event we're gonna have is just that unwind and de-stress event. That's going to be close to the finals, another very stressful time for the UNC student body. And we wanted to provide them with things such as face masks, eye masks, chocolate, etc. And we estimated we would need about $15 for hot chocolate and tea for students, about $30 for face and eye mask, about $50 for paint and canvases, just so students can have an activity to participate in to de-stress. We requested about $50 to print, which would be made of at least 30% recycled material just for our new members, because we have information packets that we are required to print out for these individuals by our headquarters. We have an area meeting that we are required to attend as members. So we have 5 members currently, and the fee is $7.60 for each member. So we're requesting a total of $38 to send 5 members to this meeting. Is just to learn about any new upcoming financial procedures just for our organization, so that way we can stay informed and run our organization to the best of our ability. We are also requesting $89.94 for a 6-month Canva account membership, for a Canva Pro membership, excuse me. And we plan to use this to publicize at least 3 of our events a month and have better access and better flyers to reach a wider audience on campus. We would plan on having a Friendsgiving event for our organizations to make sure we're having relations between our current and alumni members. And we would need the off-campus venue for this. And we plan on using a venue. When looking at the quote, it would cost us about $220 to rent a venue from the facility we were looking at in Raleigh. And we planned on using the same venue for our new member reception, which is a time to honor and represent our new members. And that would cost $330 for us to use.
On the form, you did say that your group was unwilling to identify the student government as a sponsor. Is this accurate?
Yes, I believe just because of our sorority and how it's set up at a national level, I don't think we're allowed to use like the phrasing "we were sponsored."
So a requirement of receiving funds from student government is that all organizations must identify student government as its sponsor. So if you want to receive funding from us, it's a source of funds.
Okay. Would I be able to tentatively agree, and then in the case when I reach out to headquarters, if they say we can't because I haven't gotten a response for them, but if they do ultimately say no, would it be okay to reach back out to you guys and explain the situation and retract essentially?
We can do that. Okay. We are, of course, limited by the budget. So of these 7 funding categories you apply for, which one do you want to prioritize for?
I would love to prioritize the building and venue rental, and then after that, labor and fees.
All right, then in that case, I will move to appropriate $730 in building and venue rental. Do we hear a second?
Second.
And then I will move to fund labor fees at $400. Do we hear a second?
Second.
And then the categories of clothing, I move to fund at 0. Do we hear a second?
Second.
And then the categories of dues and fees, printing and publicity, programming and supplies, I move to fund all at the rate of 0. Do we hear a second?
Sorry, could you repeat yourself? My Wi-Fi went out.
I move to fund the categories of dues and fees, printing and publicity, programming and supplies at 0. Do we hear a second?
Second.
All right, then with that being said, Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated to appropriate $1,130 from student government. That number might change over the course of the night during budget reconciliation. If it changes by more than 50%, you are entitled to an appeal. As for future steps going forward, your budget's request or your organization's budget request will be finalized at the end of this month when the full Senate hears the budget bill. But that is all for tonight. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, guys. I hope you have a
Thank you, John. Here with Carolina mock trial.
Hi, yes, this is Carolina Mantra. I can't hear you that well.
Yeah, this is an issue.
I think you're coming a little better now.
Okay.
Oh, well, it's going in and out. Yeah, it's okay.
Before we begin, I want to preface this by saying that we're working with a budget of $931,000, which means that we have to fund organizations at a rate of about 50%. But with that being said, we give you the next 3 to 5 minutes, preferably on the shorter side if possible, since we're working with a timeline for you to introduce your budget or your organization's budget request.
Sure. Are you ready for me to start now? Okay, great. So yeah, my name's Sean Clayton. I'm the treasurer for Carolina Mock Trial. Carolina Mock Trial is a competitive team. We prepare a case each year that based on a fact pattern that's provided to us by the American Mock Trial Association. That's an association that's been around since the 80s, and many top tier schools participate in, including Harvard, Duke, UVA, some peer competitors and things like that. In the fall, we represent UNC at invitational tournaments that are hosted by various universities. We plan to go to 4 of these in the fall. In the spring, which is not necessarily relevant here, but in another way that I'll get to in a moment, is we represent UNC at regional tournaments for national recognition. And so last season, for an example, we competed at what's called the opening round of the championship series, which was a first for UNC in many seasons. I think last time that happened was in 2019, so it had been a moment. And that was instrumental in bolstering UNC's mock trial national ranking and prestige. The AMTA, American Mock Trial Association, does keep a list from, I think it's 1 to 250. We were in the 200s. We've risen up 100 ranks in one season, which is a huge deal. And we made it to Orcs, and the goal now is to keep pushing and get to nationals in the spring. There are plenty of teams that are peer institutions to us, like UVA, who do this all the time. There's no reason that UNC shouldn't be able to. So first program that we're requesting money for, we're requesting $2,800 to cover the cost of lodging across 4, lodging for 4 teams in the fall. This request is based off of the Undergraduate Senate rule that only $35 per student per night. So we weren't in line with that. And the goal here, right, is we're asking for full cost because Carolina Mock Trial's goal is to make the experience as accessible as possible. So for example, this does happen on a regular basis, season to season, where certain students, I should preface by saying we do charge dues whenever possible. Certain students are totally financially unable to meet that burden, right? Like they just can't. We never want that to be a problem with them, so we do rely on Senate funding to waive that. And also in addition, there are students who, while it might be technically financially feasible to pay dues, it's way above their comfort level, and it's something that they would like to have supplemented or keep low. And that's also a large part of what our undergraduate Senate funding goes towards. So our goal is accessibility. So that's the $2,800. $2,000 has been requested for clothing, specifically as it relates to courtroom attire and costumes. So all lawyers are required to wear a suit or pantsuit, some sort of professional courtroom attire. And obviously that comes with a cost that some students can't meet if they don't already have that attire and need to get it. In addition, mock trial is in some ways, particularly with witnesses, theater adjacent. And high scoring lots of times is based on the high quality of a witness's costume. And so we want to make sure that students have resources for that as well. We're also requesting $1,200 for printing and publicity. So the fact of the matter is mock trial uses a lot of paper. This is actually extremely essential to us because electronic devices are banned in courtrooms per AMTA regulation. So you have to print out like a 135-page case, sometimes more, and you need 2 copies of that case. I know it's a ton of paper. I don't know why AMTA is still doing this, but they are. You also have to print out every exhibit, right? And then also demonstratives are a huge part of the trial experience. They can really bolster a good team into a great team. That's obviously what we're hoping to do at UNC to continue rising in rankings. So that is where that cost came from. We're also requesting, I've broken it down individually, as you can see here, but one that I will highlight. So there are 4 entry fees for the invitationals that we're going to in the fall. All of those are covered in the request, but also one that I want to highlight because of its significant and outlier nature is the regional cost. So technically that cost is related to something that occurs in the spring. Regional teams, we have 4 of them to maximize our opportunities as a competitive team. However, that cost is incurred. We've already paid it. It's incurred in the fall for competitions that take place in the spring. And as I said, it all goes back into that message of accessibility and making sure that dues aren't a barrier for anybody to participate. Yeah, and the other ones are outlined, the different invitationals that we plan to go to. They have varying cost of entry. Last thing I will touch on is the $350 to cover gas costs. All mock trial teams in proper bonding fashion do travel in carpool, 4 or 5 people to a car. Last year we went as far as Gainesville to the University of Florida. That was 13 hours. That was very tough, but it's a great time for the team to bond. But we do have student drivers, members of the team, who provide their cars, and we ask for $350 just to cover that cost. And that's also based upon guidelines outlined in the Constitution related to, I think it's 33 cents a mile for trips over 100 miles and 54 for under. So yeah, with that, the last thing I will say is that mock trial is a competition team. So there's only 40 members traditionally. And we don't, while we do not technically, as it were, have events, that necessarily bring in huge amounts of the student body, one thing that we do is by competing and performing well on the national stage, by going to orgs, by going to nationals, which accessibility for students who may be very talented and deserving of a spot on the team. By doing well in those competitions, we bolster our national ranking and prestige. And that in turn attracts a ton of new students to Carolina, future undergraduates, because I can say from my limited time on mock trial, there's a bug on my wall. I can say from my limited time on mock trial that high school students do pay very close attention to college national rankings, and it has factored into people on this very team, their choice to be at certain schools. So yeah, I'll keep it short like you asked, and any questions?
Under the miscellaneous, it does say that your group is unwilling to identify student government as its sponsor. Is this accurate?
That is not accurate. I don't know. I'm not sure why it says that. We're totally willing, if that is a requirement, where that is required, in the places where we should announce that, meetings where that needs to be announced, we're willing to do that. I'm not sure how that got missed.
Cool. Down in that case, I guess we'll go into prioritization. Which areas of your budget request do you want to prioritize funding for?
I'm really sorry. I cannot hear you.
Which areas of your budget or budget request do you want to prioritize funds for?
Yeah, so most important are lodging. We need a place for members to stay when they travel, and then also courtroom attire. How many can I prioritize? Is it just one, or? Can you repeat that? I'm sorry. Just one?
About half of the amount of your budget request.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think in terms of like the, being in line with the university's message of accessibility and our mission in that respect, definitely the lodging, people have to have a place to stay, and courtroom attire so that, people can have, that's the only way they can be in the courtroom, right? So.
In that case, I am going to make a motion to fund clothing at $1,500. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I'm going to move to fund dues and fees at $0. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I'm going to move to fund lodging at $2,500. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I'm going to then move to fund printing and publicity at $200.
Second.
And then finally, travel, I'm going to move the fund at $0. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, and with that, Carolina Mock Trial is going to appropriate $4,200. That number might change over the course of the day during budget reconciliation. If it changes by more than 50%, you reserve the right to appeal. But looking forward, future steps, your organization's budget request will be finalized at the end of this month when the full Senate hears the budget bill. But that's all we have for you tonight. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
It has been 8 minutes after Moonlight Dance Crew assigned hearing time. Oh, you're here.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be here for you, Moonlight Dance Crew. I was let in like late. The person before, I don't remember her name, told me that you guys were a bit behind schedule, and then I was let into the room, but no one said anything, so I wasn't
Okay.
sure.
Sorry, I've been doing all the other. All right. Okay. Let's try and do this quickly. I'll preface this by saying we're working with a budget of 931,000, so we're funding at about 50%. And with that being said, I'll give you the next 3 minutes to present your organization's funding request and what you need money for.
All right, I'll try and go as fast as I can. All right, so Moonlight Dance Crew is a supportive and inclusive community that enjoys dancing, teaching, and performing. We encourage individuals to continuously improve as dancers by creating a safe and creative environment. As one of the only open-style dance groups on campus, our performances and workshops give the opportunity for UNC students and the public to experience a variety of dance genres and cultures. Our first section on the for funding is workshops. The workshops are split into open workshops, which are open to all UNC students, and fundamental workshops, which we host for the club. The open workshops bring in a variety of dance organizations at UNC, such as Flying Silk and Kasama. They're intended to provide members with the opportunity to learn choreo in various styles of dance, and they also allow any UNC student interested in exploring dance to experience the atmosphere of a dance workshop. The fundamental workshops are meant to expose members to a variety of styles and provide them with knowledge on dance basics, which can then be applied to any genre of dance. They are key in allowing Moonlight to continue to be a beginner-friendly team, as they allow for all members without dance experience to learn and gain the confidence to choreograph for future Moonlight performances. Members can then continue to spread this knowledge of the dance styles from fundamental workshops to other students who are non-members and teach them dancing as well. For the workshops, I've requested about $500 to pay for teachers, because they'll be taking their time to teach UNC students and how to rate for that class. Next, I have costumes. I requested $2,000, which was just following the rules for the amount of money per member who can have for costumes on the form. Our team requires costumes to wear during the various performances done through the semester. Moonlight has showcases each semester to allow the members to demonstrate what they have learned. The showcases are attended by many UNC students, not only providing entertainment, but also allowing students to view various dance genres and explore their interest in dance, leading to further student involvement in UNC dance organizations. Moonlight also uses the costumes when performing off campus, allowing us to represent UNC and promote the campus community. The next section was travel expenses, which not including lodging was $860, and then including lodging was $1,400. Again, just following the $35 I think per night per student, and then a rough estimate of how many students we have per year. For travel expenses, we go perform at various universities such as App State to be exposed to other dance styles from other areas and make meaningful connections with other groups within the dance community. It also allows us to put our name out there. We have I think close to 100,000 subscribers on our YouTube page to have a large outreach across platforms and showcase what Moonlight does, and also promote UNC's clubs and communities. Similarly, along that line, the next thing I requested funding for was a concept video. It was $375 to pay for the person to record the video. Each fall semester, our team posts a concept video on various social media platforms such as YouTube and Instagram. Not only does the video serve to boost the confidence of members by allowing them to visualize their progress as dancers, but by filming in various locations on campus, the UNC campus and community is also promoted. With our many subscribers on YouTube, Moonlight's outreach both within and outside of campus is large. The concept video spreads the image of dedication of UNC students by showcasing the efforts of Moonlight members, while also showcasing the vibrant campus community and close ties built within UNC organization. Moonlight's artistic directors and publicity chairs contribute to the filming by advising on angles, lighting, location, and assisting with editing and posting. However, since all members will be dancing in the video, we need to hire a videographer to record it. That's everything.
Okay. We do have to work within the budget. So, in terms of prioritization, what do you feel? Which categories do you want to prioritize funding for?
I would prioritize the workshops and the concept video just because we have to pay the teachers. In the past, for costuming, we have asked members to pay for some of their own costumes. It does create issues. Not all members can pay for that, and it's more fair and it allows everyone to have the same experience in the group
if we have funding for it. But as far as prioritizing, like most importantly is being able to pay teachers and videographers who are like doing work for us. After that, I would say funding travel expenses. And then I would put costumes as my like last priority. But yes.
And that means move to fund labor fees of $375 for your second.
Second.
I'm going to move to fund clothing at $1,600 for your second.
Second.
I'm going to move to fund travel at $860 and 64 cents for your second.
Second.
All right, and then lodging and programming, I'm going to move to fund $0 for your second.
Second.
All right. Then with that being said, Moonlight Dance Crew has been appropriated $1,835.64. That number might change over the course of the next year budget reconciliation. If it changes by more than 50%, the organization is entitled to appeal. Looking forward in terms of future steps, your organization's budget will be finalized at the end of this month when the budget bill is heard in the full Senate. But that is all we have for you tonight. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Treasurer's President, it does not appear that anyone from our next group, UNC Men's Club Soccer, has passed, nor have they shown up. So I am going to move that we fund UNC Men's Club Soccer at $0 in all categories. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Howdy, y'all.
You're with the Policy Students Association, I assume.
That's what they keep telling me.
All right. So I do want to preface this before you begin with saying we're working with a budget of 931,000. So we're going to be funding organizations at a rate of about 50%. But with that being said, I'll give you the next 3 to 5 minutes to present your organization's request and what you need money for.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Hello, my name is Matthew Tweeden. I currently have the privilege of serving, among other capacities, as president of Policy Students Association. A little bit of background: until last year, we were known as the Public Policy Majors Union. We were first organized in, I want to say, 1988, as sort of the representative body for policy students to the university, and on and off held programming for about 30 years, 35 years, until the COVID era. And COVID really was the nail in the coffin for a lot of PPMU at the time's work. It fully kind of disappeared. And I had the opportunity to get back involved with what had previously been a very substantive program. And we have a fantastic executive board who said, okay, we want to put a bit more action behind some of these opportunities in front of us. And we sat down and put our heads together and developed a very strong working relationship with the public policy department, and wanted to expand that vision to be not just public policy majors, but also policy minors, policy interested students, some direct engagement with our graduate students in the policy department who are very plugged into the department programming, and to take advantage of the fact that we have an amazing faculty to build relationships with, while still creating an opportunity for students to explore different applications of policies, ties in with different tie-ins with different careers, networking opportunities, whatever else. So sort of straddling the line of academic, educational, career development, leadership oriented, lots of sort of opportunities to deliver there. So we're developing programming, or I guess at this point, delivering programming, as we have in the last handful of months, for the entirety of the public policy department, which amounts to about 450 majors, or 350 majors, 100 minors, as well as the broader policy interested community on campus. So to talk about some of where our focus is in our funding application, there are 4 main event types we're going to be planning to run this year. The first is very casual, not something we're asking for an abundance of funding for, but event mixers, right? Welcomes, meet and greets, department events, which has some logistical costs, typically rental fees or things like tablecloths for tables, right? Like there are small incidental expenses for. Would love to say food, but I know that one's off limits. But some of the adjacent pieces to making an event function. Second is our career fair. I mentioned before, there's a lot of different ways you can take policy. We have about 7 concentrations in the policy space, such as education, labor of the workforce. I'm the global conflict and cooperation concentration, international developmental economics. And one thing we really want to do is get faculty who do this research, who do this professionally, in front of students to see different angles here. So once a semester, holding an event in that vein, aiming for about $250 per event. But our 2 main events through the year will be first policy table talks. And this is appealing to or reaching out and bringing in either in-house faculty as well as faculty at neighboring institutions, the Duke, NC State Circle, policy professionals from Raleigh, and leveraging our connections in the DC sphere to bring in analysts and academics to sort of give panel conversations, small group conversations that we would aim to have a budget for printing, advertising, speaker gifts, and whatnot. Every 3 weeks is our plan. The big event of the year will be what we call issue angles. And this is taking a very broad topic, for example, immigration, and saying we want 3, 4, 5 professionals who work with that issue, but from different perspectives. So that might be immigration attorneys, that might be immigration policy side, that might be national security analysts, right? So kind of taking this broad idea of an issue that's discussed in public life and saying there's so many different ways that your area of study affect how you look at this, how you'll engage with it. And this is sort of a large overhead. Including honoraria and venue budgets, and recognize that we would like to bring in speakers for this event. So that is where the bulk of our request comes from. 2 other small things. I know I'm pushing my 4 minutes now. To say, one is recruitment efforts. This was a really big part of what we started last year. We now have the permission to buy t-shirts under Senate funding rules, which is fantastic. Thank you to whoever led the reform there. And we recognize that this is just such a big thing, is getting name visibility, things people wear. We want students to be walking billboards for the department and the adjacent programming for the Policy Students Association. And as well as a conference scholarship fund. So a very big thing in the policy space is the ability to travel for engaging with conferences that are relevant to your interests. So we want to, with whatever money we have on top of this, sort of have an open fund that students are able to apply directly into and say, hey, I was really inspired by this issue angles conversation about immigration. I want to go to an immigration policy summit in DC. I need $250 for airfare. Perfect. Or conference fees tend to be $250, maybe $500 if it's a bit more of a professional environment. So making sure that there's some extent of support we're able to provide to 5 to 7 students in the coming year. So a handful of different directions we'd like to take things, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions y'all may have.
All right.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Chair Forbes. I am having you cut out a little bit.
Okay. Am I better now?
Yes.
Okay. Policy wise, and all things to check out, nothing illegal. So I guess just what categories do you want to prioritize?
I won't lie, I fully lost you for the second half there.
Which funding categories do you want to prioritize? Senate
Yeah.
funding?
The heaviest area I would say is speaker fees and printing and publicity. Because I think if we can prioritize there, we probably, if push comes to shove, can look for line item transfers. But like recognizing that we have a higher priority for delivering on events than we do, for example, the scholarship opportunity. I would say speaker fees is probably the first priority.
In that case, I'm going to move that we fund speaker fees $5,500. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And then I'm going to move the fund printing and publicity at $3,000.
Second.
And then dues and fees and building venue rental, I'm going to pay fund those at zero.
Second.
All right, then with that, the policy students association is going to appropriate $80,500 from the undergraduate senate. That number might change over the course of the day in terms of budget reconciliation. If it changes by more than 50%, you are entitled to an appeal. As for the steps, I'm sure you know all of this. We're going to be hearing the budget bill at the end of the month, at which point the organization's funding will be solidified, but that's all.
All righty. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. You have a great evening.
Of course, you too.
My thanks to the committee. See y'all.
Hi.
Hello, 1 minute, please. Finalizing.
Sorry, it's breaking up a little bit. Could you repeat that?
Are you here with the Association of Latino Professionals for America?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Cool. Before we begin, I do want to preface this by saying we're working with a budget of $931,000, which means that we have to fund organizations at a rate of about 50%. So keep that in mind as we go forward.
Okay.
But with that, I'll give you the next 3 to 5 minutes to present your organization's funding request and what you need money for.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Nicole Powell, and as you said, I'm representing ALPA, the Association of Latino Professionals for America. And first off, I want to thank you for your time and consideration. At ALPA, we aim to develop strong, professionally adept leaders at UNC while cultivating a sense of community. We provide opportunities for resume and cover letter building, personal finance expertise, networks with over 92,000 national Latino professionals, as well as top companies. We facilitate local chapter events with neighboring schools and even mock interviews. We're the only professional development association in Chapel Hill for undergraduate students and the largest national Latino professional development organization, which speaks to the necessity of our program's funding. Our mission is to empower Latino men and women as leaders of character for the nation in every sector of the global economy. So first up, we have club dues. The first level of funding that would be required is for membership dues. We currently have 71 members registered on Heal Life, and with $20 dues each, that amounts to $1,420. We do not ask for these dues from our members because we're aiming to expand the accessibility towards those invaluable networks and resources that we have for underserved communities and help bridge the social mobility gap. We do this in an effort to help curtail the intergenerational cycles of poverty, and especially because the majority of our members are first-generation college students, which in an already underrepresented campus makes this professional development focus even more impactful. And then as far as event costs go, we have a series of events throughout the semester that necessitate guest speaker fees, travel expenses, materials, and then equipment and tech setup. The first one is the industry workshop with Accenture. It's coming up in 3 weeks, and we'll possibly be collaborating with Mi Pueblo for this. In total, the cost will be $200 as we pay for the guest speaker fee, travel for the guest speaker, which will be $90 for on-campus lodging and printing materials.
And then next up, we have the Southeast Symposium in Atlanta on September 23rd. That's our biggest event of the year because it provides the most exposure with recruiters from various companies for our association, as well as interview workshops. And there is a non-refundable $35 fee per member. We expect about 65 members to attend, and that would amount to $2,275. We will also need funding for transportation as well as accommodations. The ride to Atlanta is about 385 miles, which will necessitate that 33 cent per mile funding for at least 6 cars. Since we will be lodging for 2 nights, we will also want to use that $35 allowance or tap into that per student in attendance per night. In total, we do expect this to be about $5,000 as a result. And then our last 4 events are how to prepare in entering the finance world. That's going to be with Bank of America and P&G. It's our next event on October 25th, and we expect to use approximately $200 towards speaker compensation and travel expenses for both company speakers. And then in early November, we have a social in Greensboro with NC Central, NC State, Charlotte, and of course, Greensboro. Due to the transportation fees, we'll be using about 54 cents per mile, that accommodation, and then off-campus lodging of the $35 per person per night. And with the materials, we do expect that to be about $500 for that event. And then our last 2, we have an indoor football tournament, which will take place on November 11th. That's going to be in Fetzer. So since we are expecting to spend about 3 hours in that particular venue, that will just be about $30. And then with the printing materials as well as general equipment, we expect that to be about $50. And then our last event is going to take place on November 15th. It's a tech industry insight event with Splunk. We are collaborating with UNC Latinos in Tech and the Undergrad Business Tech Club. Again, because of that tech and equipment setup, the speaker fees, which involves off-campus lodging for speakers and materials, we've amounted that to be close to $500. Thank you for your time.
Okay. This all to check out. Oh, okay. Under the number of members category, it says you have 0 dues pay or other one individual. I assume it's an error. If the proper numbers that your organization serves, or at least that's
Sorry, it's cutting up a lot. I'm not sure why. The audio.
On the finance site, it says that you have 0 dues paying or other members and an impact of 1 individual. I assume this is incorrect. Can you give some clarification?
Yeah, our goal is to be able to, the funding that we would get or the club dues that we would use from those members who, like the 71 who would pay membership dues, that's what we're looking to get from funding from the Undergrad Senate. We would normally appropriate the funding that we get from membership dues towards that, like equipment and tech setup mostly, and the transportation, since we are going to Greensboro and Atlanta. I hope that clears things up.
Which funding categories do you want to prioritize?
What do we want to prioritize?
Which funding categories?
Okay. Yeah. The funding category that we want to prioritize is the diversity and inclusion one. I mentioned that the majority of our members are first generation students, and we only represent about, like, as Hispanic students, we only represent about 7% of the campus population. So for that reason, that's the one that we're trying to hang on to the most. And just the fact that we're the largest undergrad association for professional development. So we really want to like tone in on that particular demographic of our campus and really bring them out. A lot of us are business majors, and that's something that we noticed a lot, that at Keenan Flagler, there's very little representation. So for us, one of the biggest things is diversity, equity, and inclusion, that prioritization for funding.
The funding categories at the top, so building, venue, rental, clothing, dues and fees, etc. Which of those funding categories do you want to prioritize?
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I can't. The audio is cutting up a lot.
The most of the funding categories at the top of building and venue rental, clothing, dues and fees, etc. Which of those do you want to prioritize?
Building and
I think what he's saying is that on the budgetary like the list of line items, so building, venue rental, clothing, dues and fees, which of those
Oh,
categories is most important to prioritize for you guys?
okay. Yeah. We would say most likely the fees, the membership dues, and then the transportation ones, like the Southeast Symposium in Atlanta that we're having is our biggest event of the year, and it's also the most expensive one. So that one, as well as the membership dues, just because we're trying to make it more accessible.
In terms of dues for members, we are restricted by the type of dues we can fund. Like just a blanket Senate funding of what we would consider dues waivers would not be permissible, since that money would not have oversight after it is dispersed, and there's no way to know if that money is spent on
Okay.
funding categories that are illegal to us. So we would not be able to fund that sort of dues and fees.
Okay.
But other purposes that you wish to prioritize funds for?
Could you repeat the purposes that were mentioned by Gabe?
The ones at the top of the page, so like the building, venue rental, clothing, equipment rental, etc. All of those ones.
Okay. Yeah. Really we would just do the venue ones. We're doing a lot of events that are off campus, like the symposium in Atlanta. We're doing the Greensboro social. So I would say that the travel fees, and again, our biggest event really that we want to get funding for is the symposium, and that is supposed to be about $5,000. So
in that case, I will move to fund the travel at a rate of $1,500. Do we hear a second?
Second.
All right. Let's see. Building with venue rental, I'm going to move to fund at $675. Do we hear a second?
Second.
Now, lodging, I'm going to move to fund at $945. Do we hear a second?
Second.
And then programming, I'm going to move to fund at $150. So here's a second.
Second.
And then the categories for clothing, dues and fees, equipment rental, printing and publicity, and supplies, I'm going to move that we fund all of those at a rate of 0. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. Then with that, the Association of Latino Professionals for America has been appropriated $3,270. That number might change over the course of the night during budget reconciliation. If it is changed by more than 50%, you reserve the right to appeal. As for next steps, your organization's budget will be finalized at the end of this month when the full Senate hears the budget bill. But that is all that we have for you tonight. Thank you very much.
Do I?
That's all we have for you tonight.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Have a nice night.
You too. This One Africa.
Yes, this is.
Before we begin, I do want to preface this by saying we're working with a budget of we're working with a budget of $930,000. So we have to fund each organization at a rate of about 50%. But with that in mind, you'll have the next 3 to 5 minutes to tell the organization's budget request and what specifically you need money for.
Okay. I will say, like, before we begin, your audio was a little choppy for us, but if it if you have audio issues hearing us, then please let us know in the chat and then we can.
I can hear you fine.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, so I'm the current co-president of One Africa, and I'm here with the treasurer tonight. Obviously, we're here for the budget funding request hearing. One Africa, our mission is to create and reinforce a community based off of African culture on our campus, while also highlighting and showcasing different parts of the continent to our UNC community. So our primary way of doing that during the fall semester is through our charity gala, which we've hosted for the past 2 years now. This will be our third consecutive year hosting it. At this event, we have a variety of student organizations that we collaborate with, as well as just independent students with different talents or different forms of art from around the continent, showcasing what they can do just to highlight their culture and their background. We have other events as well that we like to host. Most of them are community service oriented. We have some professional development events, and also just bonding activities for our members as well as prospective members or frequent attendees to our events. Like I said before, our main mission is really to cultivate like a sense of community and being able to highlight and represent different cultures and aspects of life from the African continent here at UNC. Whether this is done with collaborating with other organizations or independently, different committees of our own organization, this is what One Africa does. I can go into detail about different events. I mentioned the Afro Gala, the charity gala that we've done before. We also host cultural themed parties. So Nollywood has been a party theme that we've hosted for the past 2 years now, just highlighting Nigerian Independence Day. There's a large Nigerian community on campus. But this year we were hoping to do other things like have an African culture fest, which would be a festival, but also a fair to highlight different cultures and have people understand different like ways of living, food, cuisine, things of that nature on the continent. I know UNC has an African festival, but the fair aspect of it doesn't seem to be there. And that's something different and unique that we hope to bring on campus, as well as bonding activities, whether that's going outside to the school's outdoor recreation center, having team bonding, or having just a rest and reset sort of time period after traumatic events like what was experienced last week, or after midterm season, or prior to final season. These are the events One Africa likes to host. So I know running short on time, so I'll leave it there for any questions that you all may have.
I'm going to focus my question on vitality. So, what of these funding categories, the ones at the top, like building, venue, funding, etc., do you want to prioritize in our appropriations?
I think building and venue rental will be very helpful for when we go to different places on campus, like the Stone Center. I think we've reached the capacity for free events there, as well as off-campus venues for when we want to host events like the Afro Fest or a party. So prioritizing that and programming if possible. But if you're just asking for one, then building venue rental fees.
Multiple is fine. Are there any other categories that you would like to prioritize funding for?
Labor fees, possible, just because we do collaborate with different people, whether that be speakers or DJs at our events, and we want to be able to compensate them for their time as well, or the university when we host events and we need assistance cleaning up, things of that nature, like using the Great Hall, for example. I think supplies is another category when we do want to host events that are more interactive, like arts and crafts event prior to our culture, whatever our culture event is for the semester. Typically we have something where people can make their own stuff to bring to the event. So funding for that as well.
Then in that case, I'm going to move that we fund supplies at $500. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I'm going to move that we fund programming at $1,000. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. Labor fees, I'm going to move that we fund at $1,600. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And going to move that we fund building and venue rental at $3,500. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And then the categories of speaker fees, printing and publicity, equipment rental, dues and fees, and clothing, I'm going to move that we fund all at $0. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. With that, One Africa has been appropriated $6,600 from the Undergraduate Senate. That number might change over the course of the night during budget reconciliation. If it changes by more than 50%, you reserve the right to appeal. As for next steps, at the end of the month, your budget will be finalized when the full Senate hears the budget bill. But that is all we have for tonight. Thank you for coming.
Thank you both. Thank you all for your help.
Hey guys, can you guys hear me? Awesome. How's everyone doing? Oh, sorry, go ahead. I don't know if it's just me, but I can't really pick up what you're saying right now.
I'm just finishing up entering data from the last presentation.
Okay. Gotcha.
All right. Good evening. I do want to preface this all by saying that we're working with a budget of $931,000, which means that we will have to fund organizations at a rate of about 50%.
Okay.
With that being said, I'll give you the next 3 to 5 minutes to present your organization this budget request. Fits all your community, just to be sure.
Yep, that's the one.
Then yes, the next 3 to 5 minutes are yours.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. My name is Rishi. I'm here for CYC, which is like an abbreviated term. I think it just saves a little bit of time. And so we're a student-run consulting club based out of UNC, and we engage with local small businesses and nonprofits to provide pro bono consulting services. And we're the only organization of our kind at UNC that focuses in on this small business and nonprofit sort of like niche. And so as part of CYC, undergrads here have the ability to make impact in the Chapel Hill and Carborough community. And some recent projects that we've engaged with were Purple Bowl, where we were helping them protest like the town council's decision and redevelopment and help them focus on alternatives and how they can best move forward. We work with Table, which is a hunger relief nonprofit in the Chapel Hill community. And we implemented a business partnership program that increased corporate donations. And lastly, we worked with Carolina for the Kids to help revitalize their dance marathon fundraiser. And these are just a couple of examples of the projects we engage with and how we create impact in the local community. Another important pillar of CYC is fostering community within the club. Our business school is really large, our school is really large, so giving students the opportunity to engage with this tight network has been really meaningful for me, and it's continued to be a draw and like a value add to the club, and something that we can really lean on in times of need. And so much of the time in the club is spent working closely with others on projects, and so that really builds upon relationships. And we also want to hold we also hold club bonding events where we give opportunities to members to interact with one another in a fun setting. And so recently we've expanded the club to 60 members and taking on 7 different consulting engagements each semester. So just like the projects I mentioned earlier, we have 7 of those each semester. And so that is all in an effort to broaden our impact. And so to do that, we need, basically just more funding, and we want to expand our budget. And so we're hoping to receive more funding for social events to continue this tight-knit community and build that up. And we also want, the opportunity to sort of cater food, attend local events as a club as part of that social budget. And Senate funding will allow us to do so. And lastly, we are seeking apparel for the club. So t-shirts have long been something we wanted, just always been out of budget. But I think Senate funding can be used for t-shirts and hats, which would be sustainable, of course, as I think you all like, and it would be a great way to reward our members for their hard work, promote brand, and build further more cohesive sense of community. So I think hopefully Senate funding would allow us to do that and continue the work we do in Chapel Hill and Scarborough and on campus.
Before I start with questions, I do want to point out that as per statute, we are not allowed to fund food or meals outside of the food and security budget allocation, budget cycle. So we will not be able to fund this $1,500. I assume all of that is put into the programming line item.
Yes, I think it should be.
Then in that case,
So like the 1,500 would be used. So part of that would be food, but part of it would be like a social event, like together, or like commute or like transportation to like an event, or like an escape room or like things like that. So food would maybe be like part of that, but not entirely the 1,500.
It also states that your group is unwilling to identify the student government as its sponsor. Is this accurate?
Oh no. That was a mistake. Our president accidentally mischecked that box. So we're more than willing to identify them as a sponsor.
All right. In that case, with this in mind, I'm going to move that we fund clothing at $1,800. Do we hear a second?
Second.
And I'm also going to move we fund printing and publicity at $400. Do we hear a second?
Second.
Finally, I'm going to move we fund programming at $0. Do we hear a second?
Second.
All right. With that, consult your community has been appropriated $2,200 by student government. This number might change later in the night during budget reconciliation. If it changes by more than 50%, because of the right to an appeal. As for next steps, your organization's budget will be finalized when the budget bill is heard by the full Senate at the end of this month. That is all that we have for you tonight. Thank you for coming.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Great to meet all of you virtually, at least. See ya.
Good evening. Are you here with Carolina Cover?
Yeah, I am.
All right. Okay. Before we get started, I do want to preface this by saying that we have a budget of $931,000, which means that we're funding organizations at a rate of about 50%. But with that being said, I'll give you the next 3 to 5 minutes to present your organization's budget. What you want money for.
Okay, so basically we are requesting the full 15,000, just because half of that, between 5 to 6,000, is going to purchasing fresh and frozen foods for the cupboard. Last year we did end up spending it for the 2 new freezers we got, but we will be trying to spend around the same amount of 5,000 on the fresh and food that we did last year. Majority of that was a mass order from Good Bowls, which is UNC Nutrition professors like company. We do anticipate the need of growing because we have already seen 12 customers within the last 2 weeks who have frequently come. So we do expect more to happen, especially since after the pandemic, we have increased partnership with everyone in other departments. Also, a lot of it will be going towards the purchasing of toiletries and hygiene products, which are a big hit for the cupboard. As soon as like people know that their toiletries, like paper towels, shampoo, conditioner, soap, toothpaste, all of that, that's the first thing that goes. So just to constantly keep that stocked would be very helpful with that. Also, since cupboard is located in Avery, it's very hard for you to see because it is like on the back side. So just a way we can get that publication out there for signage will also be needed, which also will go towards our budget. Just with like flyers going in dorms around campus, putting a sign outside of Avery as well, just to make it easier to find, which I feel like is another reason like cupboard also has its challenges. But once we get that, more people can get access to it. And then also with like just bags in general, when we get there, we start off with paper bags because they're higher quality, but it is so expensive. So we have to go to plastic bags, and it's harder for the customers just to get everything they need, which doesn't make the best experience. So I guess also just being able to get reusable bags for customers would also go a lot in that.
All right. Well, seeing as it's all in one category, and I will, before we appropriate, I will let you know that during the subsequent cycle, we cannot appropriate money for food. That is specifically for the food insecurity allocation, which will be occurring, or applications will be releasing at the end of this month.
Okay.
But the rest of these applications, or the rest of the applied funds, do check out. So with that, I'm going to move that we fund the category of programming $10,000. Do we hear a second?
Second.
All right. And with that, Carolina Cover has been appropriated $10,000. That number could change over the course of the night. During the reconciliation, if it changes by more than 50%, you reserve the right to appeal. As for later steps, your organization's budget will be final at the budget, the full budget bill by default at the end of this month, but this is all we have for you tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Wait, sorry, say it one more time. It broke out at the end. Just like the last thing you said, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the final step at the end of next month, the full credit is going to hear the budget bill, but that is all that we have for tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
with flying silk?
Sorry, I couldn't hear that. What did you say?
Are you here with flying silk?
Yes, flying silk.
Okay, before we get started, I do want to preface this by saying we're working with a budget of $931,000, which means that we will have to fund organizations at a rate of 50%. Is that being said, I'll give you the next 5 minutes to present your request.
Sorry, the audio was a little choppy, but I think I got most of what you said. Okay, so should I start now? Okay. Okay. So Flying Silk is UNC's only traditional Chinese dance group on campus. And our mission is to provide an outlet for UNC students interested in Chinese culture and to educate the community on aspects of traditional Chinese dance. Total attendance at our performances last year was over 1,000 people, demonstrating how we reach the broader Triangle community and build connections with other cultural groups as well. You guys, I'm sure, have all read over our submitted proposal, so I just highlight a few key things here. So as you mentioned earlier, we are requesting $3,165.64. Since we are a dance performance group, our biggest expenditure comes from our costumes. We have an expected number of 17 members in the group this year, so we are requesting $850 for the costumes category in order to purchase costumes at $50 per member. In the past, this number has been an accurate estimate of our costume costs. For supplies, we are requesting $575 for the purchases and repairs of our silk ribbons and bands. And over this past summer, we purchased $475 worth of props to replace the ones in unrepairable conditions. Silk props are core to Flying Silk's identity, as they are the signature and the namesake of Flying Silk, and they help represent Chinese culture and dance. This year, we are requesting slightly more than last year because we're accounting for labor fees and travel. This year, we're planning on hiring videographers and photographers because our publicity has been very strong since last season, and we want to make our online presence more professional and have higher quality recordings and photos to reach an even bigger audience. As for travel, Flying Silk does many off-campus performances in the Triangle area. Last year, we had 4 at locations such as the NC State Fairgrounds, Duke, and NC State. And we'd like to reimburse the students on our team who generously offer their cars to drive the team to and from 2 to 3 tech rehearsals per each performance. Yes, thank you for your consideration.
So I guess I'll go into asking which funding categories to prioritize.
We will prioritize costumes and supplies.
Okay. And in that case, I will move to appropriate $850 in the category of clothing. Do I hear a second?
Second.
And then I will move to fund $975 in the category of supplies.
Second.
All right. And then after that, I will move to fund the categories of labor fees, programming, and travel all at 0. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. With that, Flying Silk has been appropriated $1,825 from the Undergraduate Senate. There is a chance that later tonight that number could change during budget reconciliation. If that number changes by more than 50%, you reserve the right to appeal. But looking forward in terms of next steps, your organization's budget request will be finalized along with every other one when the school Senate airs a budget bill at the end of this month. But that's what we have for you tonight. So
Thank you.
Good evening. Are you here with Katana?
Could you repeat that? I like got bits and pieces of it.
Are you here with Kasama, the Filipino American Association of UNC Capital?
Yes, I'm with
All
them.
right. Awesome. Before we get started, I do want to say that we're working with a budget of $131,000, which means that we have to fund organizations at a rate of about 50%. But with that being said, I'll give you the next 3 to 5 minutes to present your organization's funding request and all the things that you need money for.
Okay. You're cutting off a little bit, but I think I understood what you said. Something about 50% and then 5 minutes to present. All right, cool. Am I good to start? All right. So basically, our organization is for the purpose of Kasama is to establish a community amongst Filipino and Filipino peoples. And we want to raise awareness of Filipino culture and just create a really safe space for Filipino and non-Filipino people that also appreciate the culture, just to be and just to hang on and have fun. And so we have our GBMs, which are requested money for. Those will be going into our programming. So we like to do a lot of collaboration things like that involve art supplies and some other things that you find at any arts and crafts store. And we have a yearly event called B7 Olympics where we travel to a North Carolina or Virginia school, and with approximately like 10 other schools from North Carolina and Virginia, we compete in a series of Filipino related mini games and get to bond with the other schools. So I requested lodging for 1 night and travel fees for that. And for our clothing, there's also a yearly program that the Asian American Association for UNC holds, which is called Journey into Asia, which is where many dance groups perform various acts all across from Asia, and we will need that funding for costumes to try on and to rehearse in. And as for here, oh wait, I already explained it a few games. Never mind.
So I guess I'll just go into which categories do you want to prioritize on?
I think the main 2 priorities would be lodging and travel, and then second would be GBMs, and then third would be the clothing. Or not GBM, sorry, programming.
Then in that case, I am going to move that we fund lodging at $1,050 for your second. And I'm going to move we fund travel at $366.66.
Second.
Then I'm going to move that we fund programming at $400 for your second.
Second.
Finally, I'm going to fund clothing at $0 for your second.
Second.
That Kasama has been appropriated $1,616.66 for the Undergraduate Senate. That number may be subject to change later in the year during budget reconciliation. If it changes by more than 50%, you reserve the right to appeal. Looking forward in terms of next steps, your organization's budget request will be finalized at the end of this month when the full Senate hears yours and everyone else's budget request in the full budget bill. But that's all that we have for tonight, and I hope you have a good night.
Thank you. Could you repeat the last 2 numbers? Sorry, just wanted to make sure what you said. For clothing and programming.
Clothing appropriated $0, programming appropriated $200.
Okay, thank you. All right.
All information. All of this
All right, thank you. You guys have a good night.
I can't hear you now. Very, very badly, but yes.
Okay. I'll. Yes. Israel, correctly?
That's correct. Yes. My treasurer and fellow co-president will be joining shortly.
Before we get started, I will preface this by saying we're at a budget of $1,000. Means that we're funding organizations at a rate of about 50%. So just keep that in mind as we go through tonight.
Sounds good.
Um, this things that you requested money for.
I couldn't really hear what you said until the very, very end. I'm sorry.
Give you. You'll have 3 to 5 minutes to present your budget request and push things in.
Okay. I heard 3 to 5 minutes to present our budget request, right? Wonderful, wonderful. Let me make sure my co-president is joining, and then we will get started. Let me double check. All right, he is not responding to me, but I think it's okay if we go ahead and get started because I'm here and my treasurer is here. And when he joins in, he'll hop in and say anything that he wants to. So should I just go ahead and give a quick rundown of our budget request, or is there anything else? Okay, perfect. A third, if I'm forgetting anything at any point, feel free to jump in, but I'll kind of just go over what our organization is for and why we requested what we requested. So Heals for Israel is a nonpartisan organization that is focused on educating fellow students on campus surrounding Israel and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and around Israeli culture as well. We want to provide a space for students on campus of all backgrounds and interests to respectfully discuss the conflict and learn as a collective, and hear from various speakers of different perspectives to just encourage education on all fronts and make sure that we can maintain a respectful dialogue throughout. So what that entails is quite a bit of funding for programming and speakers particularly. So our main MO, so to speak, is to bring speakers from various backgrounds. For example, last semester we brought in a pastor who founded the Institute for Black Solidarity with Israel, and we heard his perspective and his approach to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And a lot of these speakers come with hefty fees, unfortunately, as well as the what am I trying to say? Oh, the bedding and the housing for them for the night or the 2 nights that they're here. In addition, we often provide events on campus that are educational at their core, but range in how that we actually present them. So we might have movie nights. We may have coordinators from various Israel-related organizations come and speak about their experiences, or having general body meetings. So during these kinds of events, we typically provide various forms of merchandise and food, and obviously all the fees that come with either renting a movie or a projector, and things of that sort. I believe that is about as much as I wanted to present. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I think you hit everything.
Wonderful.
These of these funding categories do you believe will be most important for you?
If I had to pick one, it would definitely be programming. Second would be the supplies section and the speaker fees, but I think programming is definitely our top priority.
Programming at $925.
Second.
I'm going to further move that we fund the category of speaker fees at $100.
Second.
And I'm going to move that we fund the category of supplies at $300.
Second.
And now for the categories of building venue rental, clothing, equipment rental, all of those at zero.
Second.
All right, then with that, Heals for Israel has been appropriated that number may be subject to after the start of the reconciliation. If that number changes more than 50% for the field, your organization's budget will be finalized. The full here's the budget bill along with every other organization at the end of the month. That's all we have for you today. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. I would just have a very quick question. In terms of confirmation of the totals, because the audio was a little funky, will we be receiving an email with a total? Is there a place where we can access that number?
For funding, you'll be able to see.
Was that, you said within a couple days? I couldn't hear, I'm sorry.
On the same website, for funding, you will be able to see that you were
Okay, got it. Thank you very much. All right, have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
That concludes our individual sessions. I'm now going to close all of the rooms and we can return for budget reconciliation. All right. I was the only one remaining, so I'm just gonna say good job everyone tonight. We are done with night one almost. Now comes budget reconciliation. For that, let's see. Subcommittee 1 is currently $9,677.24 under budget. Subcommittee 2 is currently $18,192.12 under budget. That being said, we do need to make up a difference in terms of stipends. So I do believe
those figures for if you want.
I'm sorry.
I have those figures for if you want.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so I think we have the numbers on the principal spreadsheet. We have the numbers for the executive branch and finance committee, and I can put those in. But then there's also about a $24,000 stipend, mandatory stipends expense for the honor system, and a $2,040 expense for the board of elections. Again, mandatory. So basically there is there's over $50,000 in additional expenses which need to be added here, additional appropriations. We can try and sit down and do the math for that now, that we could get to that when the Budget Act is actually being written. That it might be appropriate for the committee to just authorize the chair to make whatever technical corrections are needed to make the stipends expense work. I mean, those are the options available to the committee, though.
I know that I will have the time and am willing to do all of that math. So if there is a motion to grant the chair the ability to do that math, I will be amicable to that.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
In light of that, I would argue that the committee should not further reconcile tonight.
And all we have to do left, as it stands currently, Subcommittee 1 has appropriated $108,020.53, and Subcommittee 2 has appropriated $92,767.13, which comes to a total of $200,787.66. But with that, we will enter final announcements. Are there any such? Seeing none, I will move to adjourn this meeting at 11:10 p.m. Good job, everyone.